So my reviews for Doctor Who have been on and off over the years, to say the least. My norm was to kind of record and ramble my initial thoughts immediately after watching the episode and upload it pretty much straight away. But given the changes in my life and how I enjoy the show nowadays, and the fact that the show now airs at midnight on a Friday after a whole week of work, I thought it would be best to make you guys wait a little bit longer and get a fully, properly written review for each episode, or at least each episode I feel like I have something to say about. If we get another Praxeus, don't expect me to come on here and do a whole ass video about it. I ain't doing that. Anyway, here we are, a double episode Season 1 premiere, Space Babies and the Devil's Cord. Today, we're going to be talking about Space Babies exclusively, and you can stay tuned through the week to catch my thoughts on the Devil's Cord. I could have done these together, but I thought, why the hell not? I've got enough to say about both. I'll split them up, we'll talk about them, they are individual episodes, so let's do that. Without any further ado, let's talk about the first episode of this series. Space Babies is written by Russell T Davies and directed by Julianne Robinson. And as always, we start with the titles to the show, but not always, apparently, because there's no cold open this time around, so yeah, interesting. New and improved title sequence? Not too sure. The logo is a hell of a lot better, and there's a couple of shots which changed. I did prefer some of the original shots in the original title sequence, but yeah, the music is also a little bit more out of sync here, so I'm not too sure on how I feel about it, to be honest. We start with the scene from the church on Ruby Road where Ruby enters the TARDIS for the first time. It isn't exactly the same, which a few people have pointed out. This is likely down to it being with different directors, but it works, and it's a nice way to reintroduce us back into the series right where we left off, pretty much. It's very classic Who, almost, with the end of the previous episode playing at the start of the next. The church on Ruby Road and Space Babies do feel directly connected, but not in a sort of traditional two-partery kind of way. I quite like that. The first stop we make is visiting the dinosaurs, and we get a kind of goofy butterfly effect joke. I do kind of like this. Nothing too serious, but kind of explains the concept to a new audience in a fun and interesting kind of way. Talking of explaining things, we get a lot of context about who the Doctor is, establishing where he's from, and once again establishing that he is the last of the Time Lords after the events of the Death Particle on Gallifrey from Series 12. Now, a lot of people hate this idea of Russell returning to the norm of his Doctor being the last of his kind. However, given how energetic and kind of over it Ncuti's Doctor seems, it does feel like a fresh new take on the idea, almost being sort of content with being the last of the Time Lords. The 14th Doctor therapy must have done wonders, because there is no way you talk about the genocidal people by going, yep, all gone. But yeah, that sounds like I hate it. I actually really like that. It makes it different from Tennant and Eccleston's Doctors, so I'm game. We then get the episode setting. We get to a random space station in the middle of space. Nonetheless, great little simple Doctor Who premise, quite easy, nothing out of the ordinary really, well, at least we think. We are met with a gorgeous transition from vortex to space to ship, and it is just fab watching the TARDIS fly about with a modern day CGI budget. It is gorgeous, and I bloody love seeing that. The bogeyman appears pretty much straight away and scares the waste product out of the Doctor and Ruby, who then work out where they are, a colony ship with a baby farm on it, ran by babies, as we find out later on. But first we get a look out into the abyss, into the unknown, a new planet, and we have basically the scene from the end of the world play out with the phone signal and calling her mom, and the planet looking out into the distance. But again, I don't mind this being similar because it's done so differently, especially with how this Doctor acts. Ncuti's is nothing like any of the Doctors we've had in recent years, or at all. This scene, despite being very similar to what we've seen back in 2005, feels so different with a completely different energy behind it, which I have to say, I do really like. So for me, all of this was great. I loved the monster, the intro to the episode, the chemistry and performances from the pair already were really good. And then we get into the titular characters. Babies. Space babies. This whole thing is either Doctor Who at its best or at its worst, and I think it's a healthy balance of both. Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. The babies with the talking mouths. But honestly, I kind of like it. The effect is really well done for the most part as well, and with the story being complete batshit, it's not lost on the Doctor and Ruby how batshit it is, which makes it better. If the story and the show weren't aware of how weird this episode concept was, then it wouldn't work. But because it is so brilliantly aware of it, it makes it so much more palatable. After all the space baby stuff, we get our story arc moment where Ruby and the Doctor talk about Ruby's parents, and then we get a flashback to the church where the snow echoes through into the spaceship. I personally love this scene. There's this music with the snow, which is sort of gorgeous from Murray Gold. It seems to echo through this episode and in the little bit in the Devil's Cord as well. It's a great theme, and it creates this horrible, creepy atmosphere with that story arc, and I love it. Combine that with the editing and the gorgeous visuals, these scenes always get me hyped so far in these 2 episodes. This is how you set up a story arc. I love it. We then meet Jocelyn or Nanny, and we have an emotional little chat before going to sort the bogeyman monster out. I do want to say that I really love all these little scenes, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail towards the end of this review in sort of an overall summary, but the emotional moments with these characters are great. There's a lot of emotional depth which is given to the side characters here, and the only side character really is Jocelyn. We've got the babies who have personalities and stuff, but Jocelyn is given a lot to do. She's given a good emotional dilemma, she's given there's an understanding of her character, and I really love what they give to her. I don't think she's the best side character of all time, but I think there is something in there which makes it a little bit better than just nothing. So all the babies head off into the lair of the bogeyman and they scare it off with a big flamethrower. Following that, Ruby and the Doctor head over to the nest of the bogeyman, almost, covered in what we later find out is snot, and this scene is incredible. Yeah, it's completely dumb, but it includes exactly what we needed from the Whittaker era. No, this isn't me slamming Chris Chibnall's stuff, I'm not all about that, you know I like that era. But something to note on screen is that 13 and Yaz's chemistry was nowhere near what it was behind the scenes. You can see this on any behind the scenes interview or games or whatever, they're super close, super charismatic with each other, and you never quite feel like that in the show between the Doctor and Yaz. Whereas here, the dialogue seems to take a little bit of a backseat to allow the chemistry between Ncuti and Millie shine. The comedy is solid, the performances are great, and you already feel like these two are the best of friends, which I absolutely love. We then get to the final chase and the airlock scene, one of my favourite moments of the episode and one of Ncuti's first Doctor-defining moments for me. The music in the flashbacks to the dialogue of him being the last of his kind, that this creature is sentient and created the same way that babies were created, that drive to save everyone is so Doctor-y for me, and that scene just gave me chills. The episode then concludes, the Doctor saves the day, the babies realise the bogeyman wasn't as scary as they first thought, and their lovely little space station farts its way to the nearest planet. Ruby then gets a key to the TARDIS in another scene which just breathes natural chemistry between actors, and yeah, we go back to Christmas. The current day. Christmas 2023. I'm sure this bit will age very well for my Devil's Cord review. Anyway, that's that. What did I think overall then? Space Babies isn't an all-timer. No, not in a million years. But they weren't going for that at all. This episode is your standard series opener with a new cast. Its design is simple and the threat is basic with an easy solution. The focus isn't on the story, it's on the 2 new cast members. Yes, we saw them at Christmas together, but this is their first proper adventure in time and space, so the focus is on that dynamic, and that dynamic was amazing. In short, you don't watch Partners in Crime for the adipose plot, you watch it for David Tennant and Catherine Tate. So same here. You don't watch Space Babies for the plot, you watch it for Ncuti and Millie. Talking about performances, Ncuti is the Doctor already. I've never seen someone settle into this character so effortlessly and brilliantly as Ncuti has here. I really feel like we're watching history unfold with him as the Doctor. He's going to be a lot of people's all-time favourites, that's for sure, and I cannot wait to see more of him in this character. He is brilliant. We have some amazing scenes in this episode that already cement him as an all-time great Doctor, with him talking to Poppy, with the speech about no one growing up wrong. Beautiful scene. Bringing the butterfly back to life at the beginning of the episode and just looking at it with that sort of childish wonder that the Doctor has. Beautiful. And obviously saving the bogeyman at the end through the airlock. All huge moments for him that show range of character, and I love it. Millie is also great. Super interesting new character, similar to Clara, I will say, but not too similar. She's got a lot of personality on show and I can't wait to see what they'll do with her this series. Oh, and her story arc is super fascinating, so I'm absolutely loving that. Judging the story alone, babies and Nanny included, yeah, it's fine, it's harmless. I can't really hate it because there's nothing really to hate. More that it's a story that isn't groundbreaking or amazing, it's silly. But the episode is completely aware of that and embraces it, so in my mind, I can't criticise it for that. It knows it's silly, it's trying to be silly, so I'm game for a bit of a silly Doctor Who episode. That's the thing I love most about this show. Every episode can be completely thematically different, and it still works. Like, this has barely anything in common with The Devil's Cord, but they're both great in their own right, and they do follow through with the same sort of lead characters, and that's what I love about it. This can be silly. It's not going to be anyone's all-time favourite, probably, but it serves a purpose, and it serves that purpose bloody well. So yeah, okay, if you think the baby's talking is a bit cringe and a bit silly, that's fine. But personally, I kind of enjoy it. One thing I didn't like as much was the messy feeling of it. Not over-the-top messy, but you'll have noticed that the Doctor says push the button quite a lot. And Russell T Davies also said at one point that should his first big scene in the TARDIS with Millie, he'd play a song on the record player. That didn't happen. Mix that with this awkward edit at the start, where he walks towards the jukebox and then pulls a screwdriver out and then the TARDIS sets off. You can kind of tell that they probably intended to play push the button here as a sort of key theme for the episode, but it never happened. It's not a huge issue by any means, but these things do keep cropping up, in The Devil's Cord especially, which I'll talk more about in that review, but for now, yeah, I enjoyed Space Babies. It's not one I'm going to rush to rewatch, but it is one that I got a lot of enjoyment out of, especially as a solid introduction to the dynamic of the new TARDIS team. So if I had to rate it, I'd probably say 7 out of 10. It's solid, it does what it's trying to do. Yes, it's a bit silly, but it completely embraces it, and I'm game. It looked great, it sounded great, the performances were pretty good. All I can really knock is that it's a bit sillier than I'd like, but who cares? It's great. In case you don't already know, I have a podcast called Nostalgia Bait. We talk about the latest TV shows, movies, games, and whatever else we fancy talking about weekly, every single Thursday. Last week, we released our Doctor Who episode, introducing this brand new season, so if you haven't already, please go and check that out. Link in the description below, and probably in the comments as well. And yeah, give us a nice little Spotify follow while you're at it. We'd very greatly appreciate that. Also, my Devil's Cord review will not be too much longer after this. I let you guys vote on Twitter to see which one we'd do first, and after over 200 votes, it was literally 50-50, so I decided to crack on and do a release order, doing Space Babies first, meaning that you'll get my review for Devil's Cord sometime soon. Hopefully before Boom releases, but we will see. Just depends on how much time I've got, really. But I'm excited to talk about that one, so yeah, just wait and see. Anyway, comment below and let me know what you thought of Space Babies. I will genuinely read all of them, so go wild. Like, subscribe, all that sort of lovely stuff, and I will see you all very soon.